Tonight on News 5 Live, fired Consul General Herman Longsworth says Go Enterprises lost money for works at Marion Jones's sports complex, but did not conclude because the National Sports Council could not pay. Foreign Minister Wilfred Elrington weighs in, saying it is for the court to determine guilt. Pablo Sosa, who is believed to have perished inside his delivery truck, is now presumed to be missing. Accused of rape, a Dangriga businessman gets bail, and 30 police officers completed basic training in criminal investigation. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast.
Signing up for Smart's broadband got even better. You can now bundle and get a free monthly prepaid mobile plan with your broadband service.
Good evening and welcome to News 5 Live for Friday, January 24th. I'm Jamie Rock. Former UDP Albert Area Representative Herman Longsworth is the subject of a criminal investigation. Longsworth was fired by Prime Minister Dean Barrow after his name surfaced in the Auditor General's report on the National Sports Council. Longsworth, who was the then Minister of State responsible for sports, reportedly created Go Enterprises Limited, which received contracts for tens of thousands of dollars at the Marion Jones Sports Complex. The payments were approved by former acting sports director Patrick Henry, whose name also appears several times for suspicious cash transactions. Since the report was tabled in the House of Representatives a week ago, the Prime Minister spoke to Longsworth, and based on that conversation, Barrow decided to fire him from the post of Consul General of Belize in New York, a post which was created for him after he decided to step aside for Tracy Tager-Panton. Today, Longsworth broke his silence, sending off a statement. He says that he was never an officer of the company, but maintained some sort of affiliation. Longsworth doesn't name the company, but says that the company proceeded to carry out the works, and that it was forced to cease the works when the National Sports Council was unable to continue to pay. Longsworth says, quote, "I fully understand that my relationship with this company has cast a shadow over the administration under which I serve. For that, I am regretful and sincerely apologize to all of you," unquote. Interestingly, Longsworth doesn't make any mentions of two statements made by the Auditor General. Longsworth does not confirm or deny that of the monies the company received, $5,000 was put into his personal bank account, and $25,000 was deposited in the UDP Albert Committee account. He says that he has written to the Auditor General to bring to her attention the irregularities in her report. Well, investigators are looking closely at those reported irregularities. Commissioner of Police Chester Williams told the media today that Longsworth will be criminally investigated to determine if he committed crimes.
Sir, has your office been given directives to investigate Herman Longsworth in terms of to see whether any criminal charge can be levied against him and other players like this former acting sports director?
I don't think I need a directive from anybody to do my job. If it is that there is some degree of evidence, or what we refer to prima facie evidence, that a crime has been committed, it is the duty of the police to investigate. And Mr. Longsworth was named in the audit report. There are certain things that was said that he did. That is prima facie evidence that a crime has been committed. And so he is going to be a subject of the investigation as well. The investigators will have to go after him and do what needs to be done to ascertain if, in fact, he had committed a crime.
But here is a kick. Longsworth's release was accompanied by a set of photographs showing clean and completed facilities at the Marion Jones Sports Complex. But just before news time, News 5 received information that those photos were taken as recent as Thursday and do not reflect the state of work when Longsworth was in charge. As you heard, the former minister says the establishment of the company Go Enterprises was undertaken to facilitate the completion of work at the Marion Jones. Longsworth states that work ceased when the National Sports Council could no longer pay. But the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Wilfred Elrington, who was Longsworth's boss until this week, agrees that if it was not for proper, the fired Consul General to deposit monies from the NSC into his private account.
The problem seemed to have arisen some years ago when Mr. Longsworth was dealing with some construction. I think it may have been the Marion Jones Stadium, where he got funds to do certain works. And there's some suggestion that the Auditor General, the people working for the Auditor General is making the allegation that in fact they have evidence showing that some of the funds at least are funneled into his personal bank account. I think that is really the crux of the matter, that funds that were supposed to have been dedicated to the project were traced into his personal bank account. I have not read the Auditor General's report, but I have not heard it suggested that the works for which the funds were paid were not done. I had a discussion with Longsworth, and he informed me that the works had been done, but for a reason of expediting the activity, the monies were funneled into his account.
But is it not a conflict of interest, perhaps illegal even, that a public official, in this particular case, a junior minister with sports as his portfolio, would set up a company that would then provide private works for the construction of the Marion Jones Sporting Complex in this case?
Yeah. It's certainly, that is not deemed to be proper. It's regarded as self-dealing, you know what I mean? And it's not the most ideal way to do business at all, especially when you're dealing with funds that are not your own. It's always better to have an arm's length transaction. If you are the minister, hire an independent company to get the work done.
As to the firing of Longsworth for the allegations made in the Auditor General's report, the Foreign Minister offered a lawyerly explanation, saying that it is for the court to determine guilt, tantamount to the PM's well-known statement on factual guilt and legal guilt.
The practice in this parliamentary system, which we pursue, the practice is that if there is appearance of impropriety on the part of any senior official, the proper thing for them to do really is to resign. And maybe if they don't want to resign, then you pull the plug on them. So it's really a practice, but the fact that he may be relieved of his office and the like is not synonymous with guilt. To my mind, guilt is only established when the court says you are guilty, legally. But the practice is that if you have this dark cloud hanging over your head, the society feels better if in fact you are removed from the post. Either you're put on half pay or full pay and suspended, or you're terminated. But I don't think that that is synonymous with guilt. You have to go through a process, and it's only when the court pronounces you guilty that in fact you can be said to be guilty.
The United Democratic Party, in the final year of its three-term administration, is plagued with scandal after scandal. The most recent involves both leadership candidates, and the Prime Minister has been busy trying to douse the flames caused by public outrage. In sitting down with Foreign Minister Wilfred Ellerington today, we asked the Pickstock area representative how he felt about the recent developments which threatened to derail the outgoing Barrow administration.
Do you feel, seeing what is unfolding in terms of the Lev Derman scandal, the impact that it has had on a partisan level within the United Democratic Party, and the fact that there is the pending February 9th convention, the name of one of your colleagues is being called prominently in this particular scandal. What are your thoughts?
It's a good question you asked me, Isani. It's a very, very, very good question. Because it speaks to the culture of Belizeans. You and I know the politicians better than most people. And one thing we know for certain is that 9 out of 10 times, the information that publicly surfaces about a person or persons is many times not as bad as other information which may exist and simply doesn't come to the fore. This is a society that we have, and whether people are rich or poor, you have people who do things that are in their skeletons in the closet, that if they come out can cause a lot of people to lose their aspirations or to abort their opportunity for leadership.
But admittedly, your party, sir, is scandal-plagued at this point.
Concede.
And
concede.
What does that do for public confidence in terms of persons who are going to the polls sometime later this year to elect a leader?
It doesn't enhance confidence at all. As a matter of fact, it can dampen confidence.
The United Democratic Party, as it stands, is arguably facing the most contentious leadership transition in its history, given everything that is happening currently. I'm certain that the events of the past few weeks will shape how you, as a voter leading up to the convention, and perhaps your delegates, will determine which of the two aspirants they will go with for leader of the United Democratic Party going into the general elections. Where do you stand? I'm not asking you who you'll vote for, but I'm asking you, has the events of the past few weeks influenced the position you previously held?
Well, Isani, I am privy and seized to other facts which cause me to have to be very careful in how I come down on who I will support with respect to this matter. You see what I mean? The allegation that has been made public in relation, I think, to Minister Saldivar, for example, the suggestion is that he was receiving monies from a source abroad. Well, as I just told you, Ambassador Sondland in the United States is said to have been given his appointment as ambassador because he contributed $1 million to the Trump campaign. The giving of money by itself to a politician is not per se illegal or immoral. One has to find the circumstances behind it. If you get money from a known drug dealer, that is worrisome.
Amid the Lev Derman-John Saldivar fiasco is a claim that ambassadorship for Turkey was being sought on behalf of Derman through various UDP ministers. Those appointments, as stated at his press conference last Wednesday, are handled solely by the Prime Minister. We asked Foreign Minister Elrington whether he knew of such a request. He also explained why the recommendation for Derman to be made honorary consul to Nevada was unsuccessful.
Minister, I was made to understand, and perhaps you can either confirm or dispel the notion altogether, that Mr. Derman had sought through other ministerial channels, perhaps, an ambassadorship to Turkey. Are you aware of that? Can you speak to that?
I have no knowledge of that. But let me say that if that were done, it would not be completely unusual. Because all over the world, people want positions of prominence, particularly in the Foreign Service.
So what happened with the Nevada appointment, if I should call it that, where Lev Derman had requested to be the honorary consul for the state of Nevada?
Requested to have him made honorary consul based on his CV, which is very impressive. He's a businessman who is engaged in the oil industry and seemed to have done well over the years. But the United States government indicated that they had some adverse report about him, and so they did not think they could accede to a request in that regard. Again, that happens. That happens, you know. That's why we go through the process of causing the person to be vetted. And this man went through the same process like all the other applicants for that position. He was vetted both by the local police and by Interpol.
Another person named in the Auditor General report is Ivan Ayuso from the National Sports Council. Commissioner of Police Chester Williams says that a senior investigator has been assigned to delve into the findings of the report and bring those who committed crimes to justice. According to the Auditor General, Senior Accounts Clerk Ivan Ayuso had, quote, manipulated the pay sheets and have siphoned the money into his personal accounts at 3 commercial banks, unquote. The Auditor General says that during the year in review, $416,228.25 appeared to have been embezzled from the National Sports Council. Commissioner Williams says that a formal complaint has been made, and as such, the case moves further.
In order for there to be a police investigation, there must be a complaint. I have already advised Mr. Aban how are we going to approach this to have a complainant. And we have identified who that complainant is going to be. I'm not going to say it publicly, but we have identified who that complainant is going to be. I have also discussed with that complainant and request of him what we need to get from him to be able to further our investigation. He have agreed that he is going to be of assistance in whatever way we can, whatever way he can, to ensure that the police investigation can flow. I believe Mr. Aban met with that person today and may have recorded that statement from the individual. Then with that, there is the need for us to be able to collect banking information. Now, banking information is not something we can just walk into the bank and tell the bank we need this. But the Anti-Terrorism and Money Laundering Act provides the mechanism, or it gives FIU the authority, the teeth, to be able to request these financial statements from the banks, and it is incumbent upon the bank to ensure that they provide to FIU. And so we will rely on FIU to be able to collect the bank information, which is going to form part of our investigation, so that we can flow with this investigation. I really and truly don't want to see us drag on with this investigation too long. I expect that within a reasonable time, the investigation will be completed and we'll be able to present the file to the DPP for her to make her determination as to where we go with it.
Turning to other crimes, a shootout between Belizean law enforcement officers and 4 Guatemalan bandits occurred this morning in the border of the village of Arenal. The men targeted a Belizean resident, holding up a family of 4 at gunpoint. They stole a vehicle and an assortment of items. Heavily armed police officers and BDF soldiers responded quickly, shooting 2 of the bandits. Commissioner of Police Chester Williams shared more details.
The bandits fired at the police, and the police returned fire. The bandits had with them 1 stolen vehicle that they had that they stole during the robbery, and an assorted amount of items. The police were able to recover the stolen vehicle and all the items stolen. And we also believe that 2 of the bandits were shot by the police, but it occurred so close to the border that the 2 who were injured were picked up by the other 2, and they took them over the border, and they went about their business. We do not pursue because it is not Belize, and we don't want our officers to go over that side and then they're caught by the authorities from Guatemala. The persons who were robbed, 2 were injured. They're currently at the hospital receiving treatment. From my understanding, one of them got a burst head because he was hit in the head with a gun. And the police are following up on this matter. We have contacted our counterparts in Guatemala, and we're hoping that the PNC will be able to help us locate those persons, and then we get them back over to Belize. In the Arenal area, after we had those spate of incidents, we have stepped up our presence in Arenal. In the past, we used to have 2 police, 1 regular and 1 paramilitary, but now we have 2 paramilitary police and 2 BDF. And the police in Arenal are armed with rifles, and as well as short arm. So we are prepared for the battle, and so they responded, and I must commend the officers and the BDF for their bravery. Thankfully, none of them were injured during the ordeal, and we just have to hope that we can find those persons responsible.
There is breaking news tonight. News 5 has confirmed that a murder occurred a short while ago in Dangriga. We are told that the victim was shot in the head while inside a store. More details on this latest murder in Monday's newscast. Police say they don't know how 2 persons were murdered inside a Belize City delivery truck found off the Farm 4 road in San Juan, Stan Creek District. The post-mortem was not able to determine the cause of death. At this time, police say that while they have the identity of the person who drives the truck, they can't say for sure that he is one of the persons killed. They have to wait for DNA evidence to establish this. As we reported on Thursday, the family of 33-year-old Pablo Sosa told us that they believe that the remains in the truck may be his. Tonight, police have very little to go with to find out what happened to the persons who were set on fire inside the delivery truck. Reporter Andrea Polanco tells us what police know so far. Here's the story.
This is what's left of this delivery truck after it was torched and abandoned in the Savannah area of San Juan. It was discovered sometime around 7 on Thursday morning off the feeder road to Farm 4. Inside, police discovered the charred remains of 2 persons, burnt beyond recognition. The identities are not yet known. What we do know about this case is that the truck belongs to Salvador W. Habet, a hardware store in Belize City. When the truck left its base on Monday morning, the driver was 33-year-old salesman Pablo Sosa. Authorities are stumped. They have little details to go with to determine what happened. Commissioner of Police Chester Williams says that they're treating it as a homicide, although they've been unable to determine the cause of death.
We know little at this time, and yesterday the post-mortem was conducted, and the cause of death was undetermined. As to whether or not we're treating it as a homicide, yes, we are treating it as a homicide. We are investigating to see if there is any person or persons who may be culpable in that particular incident.
On Thursday, when we spoke with Sosa's family, they said that they strongly believe that he's one of the bodies inside the truck. The last time they saw him and spoke with him was on Monday morning. He made a stop at his family home in Pomona, where he told them that he was heading to do deliveries in the San Juan Independence area. Sosa was traveling alone at the time. The family shared that they've been unable to reach him ever since on his cell phone. Today, Commissioner Williams shares what the investigation has uncovered so far.
The investigation revealed that the last time one of the individuals was seen alive was the night before, and he was drinking. Right. And we're also following that lead to see where he was drinking, with who he was drinking, and every other things that can take us to be able to ascertain exactly what may have transpired.
Although we know that Sosa is the truck driver, no information is available about whom the other person may be. Authorities say that they cannot say that Sosa is one of the persons who perished inside because they don't have the DNA evidence to support this. Earlier today, Crime Stoppers Belize issued a flyer listing Sosa as a missing person.
Well, we have to look at every possibility. I don't want to say definitively that it is him, but it can be assumed, and I don't want to rely too much on assumptions. We have collected samples from the scene, and those samples will be sent for DNA. And whenever that result comes back, then we'll be able to ascertain through scientific evidence if indeed it is the person you are referring to.
A representative of the business told us today that they didn't think anything was wrong when Sosa didn't return to work this week. They say that sometimes he would stay a night or two out on the road, and that they know that cellular service is spotty along the route he takes. They also confirmed that Sosa was the only employee doing deliveries as per business practice. They are yet to determine if the items were delivered to the customers. Here's what police shared about Sosa's movements.
He didn't take too much goods for delivery. I think he had one delivery, and based on what I have been briefed by the investigators is that he was to return to Belize City the night after the delivery, but he have sought permission from his employer to stay back to do some personal issues or errands, and that was granted to him, hence he remained down there. But again, I still don't want it to be said that I am confirming that it is this individual, We still don't know if it is him, and we have to rely on the DNA evidence.
Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
Coming up, Compel Williams says that the illegal landing behind Crooked Tree will be destroyed, and we'll have more from the foreign minister.
Hello, friends. today.
A drug plane landed in an area in Crooked Tree Village, Belize District, earlier in the week. When law enforcement officers arrived at the scene, the HS-125 Hawker jet had been emptied and the plane was intact. According to Commissioner Williams, the drug plane was originally to land in Mexico, but was diverted to Belize where drug traffickers whisked the drugs away. Williams says that police are still in the area searching for the drugs.
Yes, we are still focusing in the area. We note that there is a river that runs from that area and go all the way into Mexico side. And there is a possibility that that river may have been used, but we're still in the area, we're still looking, and we're still hopeful that we will come up with something.
Is it your belief really that the drugs are still in the country?
At this time, I don't want to say yes, I don't want to say no. We're just hoping that it still is and that we can find it, if it is.
Commissioner Williams has given the directive for the illegal airstrip to be destroyed by bombing. He says that all efforts are being made by the department to intercept these drug planes and prevent future occurrences. According to Williams, while strategies are being rolled out, the department will never be able to stop the landing of drug planes in the country.
The location where the plane landed, in hindsight now we're seeing that it has about 4 or 5 different outlets. And so while we were focusing on the main one, there were still others that could have been used. And it's an area now that we are fully cognizant of, and I have already given directive that we will destroy the airstrip. So the BDF will go into the area and they're going to blow it up. So no plane will be able to land there again unless if they go and redo it. And we'll ensure that we have constant visit to the area with a view to prevent anybody from fixing it back for it to be used as an airstrip again. These people are very determined, they're very resilient, and when they want to get their product out, they will find any way possible to get it out. When these cartels come, they don't only have a plan A, they have a plan B and a plan C. So if A and B fails, then they go to C. And that was what actually happened. The plan A from Mexico failed because of the Mexican air reconnaissance, and so they resorted to plan B. I listened to a school of thought saying that it's either the police don't have a clue as to what is happening. My thing is, the truth is, we don't have a clue. We have to rely on intelligence. And the only people who would have clue are those who are involved. And believe you me, the police department, along with the BDF and at times the Coast Guard, we have and will continue to do all we can to ensure that we minimize the landings of these planes. And I'm not going to say stop it, because no matter what we do, we'll never be able to stop it.
Shortly after he was sworn in as President of Guatemala, Alejandro Giammattei announced his intention to meet with Prime Minister Dean Barrow to forge a more cordial relationship between the two countries. As you know, the territorial dispute is headed to the ICJ for resolution. Giammattei says he asked the OAS to facilitate the encounter. Foreign Minister Wilfred Elrington told News 5 that part of strengthening the bilateral relationship also includes trade and commerce between both countries.
It will be a meeting between our Prime Minister and the President. I'm sure he's disposed to that. Prime Minister Barrow is very disposed to that, because that is the reason why we want to end the dispute, so that we can get along and work with each other like normal presidents and prime ministers all over the world who meet in these summits. I heard him on the television saying that they want to enhance trade and investment with us now that in fact the dispute is at the ICJ. We had already been advised long ago by our ambassador to Guatemala, Alexis Rosado, that Belize, in terms of priority for Guatemala, is very low. They don't regard the Belize-Guatemala dispute as a matter of high priority at all. But what they regard it as is very important in relation to Belize and Guatemala is the opportunity for trade and investment. That is an absolutely good news for Belize. It's consistent basically with what I had been hearing from former foreign ministers, and to hear the president articulate it so clearly is an excellent, excellent news, because the lifeblood of any nation, its ability to trade, and to have the opportunity to trade with Guatemala that has millions of citizens and which we can access simply by crossing the border.
U.S. Secretary of State Michael Pompeo met with high-level government officials and prime ministers from across the Caribbean earlier this week in Kingston, Jamaica. Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago boycotted the region, and a number of other states supported that position because not all members of CARICOM were invited. Those who were around the table, however, took turns addressing various regional issues, and Foreign Minister Wilfred Elrington chose to speak on the topic of education and knowledge disparity.
Each of us spoke about different issues. We had a small caucus before the meeting, and it was decided that each of us in the Caribbean would deal with different things. One would deal with climate change, one would deal with this difficulty we have with banking and de-risking and the like. I spoke on education. I have a passion for education, and what I said to the American Foreign Minister is that what concerns me is not the wealth gap, the disparity in wealth that exists, but I'm very, very concerned about the disparity in knowledge. How can you assist us to bridge this huge knowledge gap? And he said, Mr. Arrington, I did not respond to you because I don't know what the answer to that is.
This morning in the Court of Appeal, SpeedNet Telecommunications Limited, the parent company for SMART, filed a leave to appeal to the Caribbean Court of Justice. The matter is to settle, once and for all, a legal dispute that has gone in favor of SMART at the Supreme Court level and against the company when the Public Utilities Commission later appealed the ruling. Last year, the Court of Appeal overturned a Supreme Court judgment made by Justice Michelle Arana, who ruled that the PUC could not collect fees without granting a full license to SMART. The PUC claims that SMART owes some $1.4 million in fees for the use of its 700 megahertz frequency bandwidth, an agreement which the monitoring agency had first granted in 2001. But there should have been the granting of a subsequent license, which was not done. The two parties will end up before the CCJ, which will decide whether or not SMART must pay the spectrum fees. SpeedNet's legal team has maintained that the PUC gave the company permission to use the bandwidth under the understanding that there would be some level of regularizing it in the future. But that time never came, and now the PUC wants it deem its legitimate fees due to them. Senior Counsel Fred Lemore and Sheena Pitts are the attorneys for the PUC. Senior Counsel Eamon Courtney and Priscilla Banner are the attorneys for SpeedNet. Dangriga businessman Wilfred Pascasio, through his attorney Richard Dickey Bradley, today acquired bail from Justice Marilyn Williams in Belize City Supreme Court. Pascasio, who is the proprietor for an island resort in southern Belize, is accused of the rape of one of his employees, an 18-year-old. She alleges that Pascasio forcibly had sexual intercourse with her at the resort on January 13th. Pascasio has been on remand since he was arraigned on Monday. The 53-year-old businessman is due back in court on March 18th. Magistrate Aretha Ford today committed Akeem Baptist to stand trial in the Supreme Court's February session. Baptist is charged with using deadly means of harm and wounding upon Amira Fernandez on September 13, 2019 at Western Paradise off the George Price Highway. The prosecution alleges that Baptist aggressed and wounded Fernandez with a knife on that day. As part of its case against Baptist, the prosecution has tendered as evidence witness statements and 7 persons, including Fernandez, plus photos and a medical legal form specifying the injuries which Fernandez allegedly suffered. Baptist is out on bail of $10,000 in the form of 2 sureties of $5,000 each. He is represented by attorney Lisha Barrow. Shots were fired on Thursday morning in Punta Gorda. Cell phone footage show police arresting a man on Far West Street. According to Commissioner of Police Chester Williams, a suspect was being pursued. To capture him, officers fired warning shots. Commissioner Williams explained what transpired.
Basically, the shooting was done by police. It were the police who fired shots at them. They thought it was Mr. Bennett, who is currently being, well, he's now in custody, who was being pursued. And when they responded, the person ran, and the police fired 2 warning shots, and the person was caught. Yesterday, the person who the police pursued, based on what the police were saying, that he had a gun, and they pursued him, and during the pursuit, they fired 2 warning shots.
There's much more news after the break, so stay tuned.
In life, there's always 2 sides to every story. Good stuff, not so good stuff.
Police in Dangriga are investigating a fatal shooting that claimed the life of Darrell Bermudez this evening. Bermudez was inside a store on Melinda Road when he was targeted by a lone gunman who shot Bermudez in the head. This is the latest murder that the police are investigating. This afternoon, prior to the murder, Commissioner of Police Chester Williams was asked to comment about the murder statistics for this month so far.
This month has been going well. We have looked at our results from last year. We have done our analysis. And through our analysis, we have somewhat of a 2020 vision of 2020. And we are hoping that those best practices that we have learned and adapted in 2019, that we can now enhance those to be able to make our country safer. Really and truly, to control or to contain the murders is not an easy task. It is, I can tell you, it's a really difficult task. It requires a lot of thinking. It requires innovation. It requires commitment, dedication, not only on the part of me, but on the part of my officers, and more so my commanders.
30 police officers completed basic training in criminal investigation. The course spanned a period of 3 weeks, during which officers were trained on professional and effective investigation in skills, attitude, and aptitude. The course was sponsored by the U.S. Embassy of Belize, which also provided facilitators with technical expertise. Commissioner of Police Chester Williams says that the goal is to enhance the officers' investigative skill.
The training came very timely, in the sense that over and over we have been criticized as it relates to the level or standard of investigations that our officers have been conducting. Even though as a department we believe that the performance of our investigators have been satisfactory, we do also recognize that a person could never be overtrained. And as much as the amount of training that they can get, the better it will be for us, because if they are better trained, then they will be in that position where they can then perform satisfactory to the needs of the public.
There's a virus linked to respiratory tract infections that has killed several persons and sickened hundreds more. The new strain of the coronavirus was first detected in China. Today, the second case of the virus was detected in the USA after the first case was confirmed earlier this week. There are no known cases in the Caribbean or Central American regions, and health officials are monitoring the developments. Locally, the Belize National Surveillance Team has been activated, and on Thursday, the team, led by Director of Health Services Dr. Marvin Manzanero, participated in a virtual meeting hosted by the Caribbean Public Health Authority to discuss the novel coronavirus outbreak. CARFA says that at this time, the risk of transmission to the Caribbean is low, based on what they know about the virus. And while there are no known cases in this region, the outbreak is new and situations can change drastically on a day-by-day basis. The Ministry of Health says that the sickness resembles pneumonia, and with most patients experiencing a fever and severe non-productive cough, while some have difficulty breathing. The public is advised to wash hands with soap and clean water before and after eating, when using the bathroom, and before preparing food. When we come back, the Customs Department celebrates International Customs Day with an information fair.
Now is the time.
One of the first agencies you meet at the border point is the Customs Department. At the Philip Golson International Airport, you will see them checking luggage as well as collecting taxes. But their work is evolving to areas of trade facilitation and security. Today, on the occasion of International Customs Day, they mounted displays and invited schools to share information on their functions. Here is News 5's Dwayne Moody.
Customs fostering sustainability for people, prosperity, and the planet is the theme for International Customs Day 2020. The parking lot of the Civic Center in Belize City was the location for an all-day fair that put on display the various units of the Customs and Excise Department. Primary and high school students were provided with information on the functions of the department as well as clarity on misconceptions.
We try to, based on the theme and also looking at our modernization initiatives, we try to promote that part of the department, the newer areas of the department and the traditional ones, since our primary role was and still is revenue collection, but we're evolving to trade facilitation and of course security becoming one of the main things. So we have about 6 main sections of the department here, and we also invited different agencies that we work along with and we perform agency duties for.
Those partner agencies include the Bureau of Standards, the Departments of Fisheries and Environment, the Financial Intelligence Unit, Beltrade, Climate Change, as well as Atlantic Bank Limited. Tricia Sabrani says that there are many things that travelers take for granted when entering a country. The information fair provides an opportunity to educate attendees about the do's and don'ts when traveling or importing items.
When coming in contact with customs, some of the activities and some of our responsibilities that we have, how we contribute to economic growth and development, securing the country, food safety, food health, right, animal as well, plant. And so we perform a variety of functions. We have big responsibilities. That's what they know customs for, either taking away somebody's good or charging person duty, right? But it goes beyond that. We now have newly created trade section, and they're responsible for managing the different trade agreements that the country signs on, and customs is responsible for enforcing the agreement. So we have to be able to apply it, making sure the proper claims, they're legitimate, those items qualify for the treatment that they're applying for, and even sensitizing and engaging the public and private sector.
One of the units within the Customs and Excise Department that was recently established is the Customs Investigation Enforcement Unit. Enforcement Officer Ronald Sanchez says that there are many challenges because they have to deploy officers across the length and breadth of the country to address the porous borders.
At the enforcement section, we're responsible to ensure that the unmanned areas of this country is being monitored by our presence now. What we often do, we conduct patrols in the illegal areas, such as Botes and the other areas that the Belizean public are trying to utilize to get their product from across the border now. We maintain presence in those areas, and as you know, the increase in the plane landings cause it heightens our threat level in that area. So we have to step up our efforts in order to combat what is out there, ahead of us. Manpower is much needed because we are responsible for the entire length and breadth of this country, and I mean that's a huge area to cover. Our enforcement units are very small units, an upcoming unit, so we are trying to build as much as we can. But we try to do the best that we can with what we have. So it's very challenging, yes, but we try to do the best that we can.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
Hostility while patrolling the borders can result in crossfire between law enforcement officers and contrabandistas in buffer communities along the Belize-Mexico border. The enforcement officers of the Customs and Excise Department has been strategic, oftentimes partnering with the police to carry out operations in villages such as San Victor in the Corozal district. Ronald Sanchez told News 5 today how the department deals with this issue.
We try to work our best around it. Entering the village is no problem, but when you capture or you seize a shipment within the village, that's when the entire village decide to attack. We try to do, not to expose our efforts, but we try to go around that. So if we cannot enter in, we try to get intercepted before it enters into the village or when it leaves the village. So we try to do different tactics to try to address the issue, but it's a very hostile area, and eventually we will take over a position of that area again.
When you guys operate in these areas, it's with the assistance of police and BDF, or it's are you guys also have the authority to go in with necessary force?
With the power of a warrant, we can enter our premises if we suspect that illegal goods or contraband goods is in the premises now. But when it comes to patrols, we try to do a joint effort due to the increase in threat levels and everything. So we try to encourage the other enforcement units to come on board with our patrols, and we coordinate from time to time to ensure that we maximize our efforts with what we have. So we do joint patrols and everything with the police, BDF, Coast Guard at times.
Sanchez says that the minimum fine for custom offenses is $20,000. If someone is caught with contraband, there is an option to settle out of court. If the case is taken to court, a person may be 3 times the market value of the contraband goods. Coming up after the break, the annual plastic surgery mission of the World Pediatric takes place this weekend.
Where can I get one of those?
a port with a global perspective.
The World Pediatric Project is hosting its annual plastic surgery mission on Sunday. A team made up of 2 surgeons is arriving from Richmond, Virginia this weekend and will be treating patients up to the age of 21. They will be seeing patients with a number of conditions, some of whom may require plastic surgery. Patients must first attend the clinic on Sunday to be evaluated by the team. Teresita Sanchez of the World Pediatric Project shares more about the clinic that will be held in Dangriga.
We will be seeing patients that have cleft lip and palate, any ear deformities, skin burns or scars. We do scar revisions as well. We will be seeing any lumps in the neck areas or the head areas, or any child that has any difficulty breathing.
So now this service will be offered where and what date?
So this will be on Sunday, that's the 26th of January. It will be at the Southern Regional Polyclinic. It's right next door to the Southern Regional Hospital. Clinic starts at 8. We always advise our patients to reach a little earlier. We go by number and it's a first come, first served basis. They can travel from any place. It doesn't matter from what district. It's open to all the children, and the only thing I want to note is that the cutoff age is 21, so it's from birth to 21 years old.
So for this you will have surgeons coming into the country. Is it a big team that's going to be here?
Yes, so this is a team of roughly maybe it's 10 staff coming in. So we have 2 surgeons coming in. We don't have any clinic days during the week because surgeries are done between Monday and Thursday there at Southern Regional as well.
So when we say the clinic is just to go in to do an evaluation, that sort of thing?
Yes, so most cases don't really require surgery at the same time. Some surgeries can be delayed, or the child needs to be a certain age or reach a certain maturity before any surgery can be done, especially because this is plastic surgery that we're dealing with. So we always recommend our patients to come in, even if it's just for an evaluation, even if the parent is not ready to do surgery, they can come in, get their name in our system, and then we always call them back, and the doctors always do this evaluation to monitor as well. So it's not necessarily just come and you'll get a surgery. It's come, it's evaluation, monitoring, and we pride ourselves in that we have the same doctors always coming in, and they always have patients that they've seen for the past 10 years.
If you'd like more information, you're asked to call 223-7300. A week long of activities promoting drug awareness at Canaan High School on Coney Drive in Belize City concluded today with a parade through the streets of the city. 102 students from the 1st to 3rd form marched to send a message and say no to drugs as the band led the procession while students carried posters. News 5 spoke with Principal Pat Nemhard, who says that in its 4th edition, the school had to re-strategize because a number of their adult students have been negatively affected by the decriminalization of up to 10 grams of marijuana.
We culminated with the parade, and this was just to give awareness to the public and to our young people on a whole. You know that drugs kills, and stay away from drugs. So that's the basic theme for this week. Send a message, stay drug free.
Now, this is the 4th year, I believe, that you guys are doing it, and talk to us about how important it is for the students to be aware of all these factors, because as teenagers, they're going through all this where they're being pressured. So,
Jules, to be honest with you, since the government passed that law about the amount of grams that is legal, we have noticed that we had to do some extra work with our children because we found out that they're trying to use the drugs because they have it at home now. It's more rampant in the home. So it gave us at Canaan more work because now we have to talk to the students, educate them about the drugs and how it affects their mind. You know, coming to school high on weed is not helping, and other types of drugs that they're using. So it's more work for us, but we're doing what we can to assist them and to educate them that drugs kill, and you have to make sure that you do not participate in these activities, even under peer pressure. You have to be the bigger person. You have to tell them, you know what, we cannot do this. We're sending this message today. I will not take the drugs. And we're seeing a lot of changes since then, you know, and that's why we're doing this every year, the parade and other activities that we do.
There are 290 students enrolled at Canaan High School. And that's the news. Don't forget that tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/News5Live. I'm Jamie Rock. Thanks for joining us, and from all of us here at News 5, have a happy and safe weekend. Good night.